And then neuroticism. Now, it's important that you notice this is what they call trait neuroticism. This isn't neuroticism in its normal stage. It is considered a trait, part of the temperament. Now, if you're high in, this is negative emotion, basically. So it's your tendency then is to be anxious, fearful, insecure, mood swinging, overthinking problems, worry, pessimistic, and often sees the problems without the solution. So a lot of people have that tendency. Just to a degree, my wife has that. Whenever something new comes up, she usually goes, "Oh, I can't do that," or "I don't want to try anything new." And so it's if you're high in this, then you're going to have to make some compensation. You have to overcome some of the things, because this in and of itself, is not bad. It's just it has to be managed pretty carefully, because you can spiral down quickly if you've got this if you're very high in trait neuroticism. Now, here's the interesting thing. Men and women are on the bell curve, on the standard deviation, are exactly the same in almost every category. The other thing is that we don't talk about here, but that's IQ, the intelligence quotient, how quote smart people are. So men and women on the standard deviation are pretty much exactly the same. However, there are one area where women are significantly more agreeable. Now, those of us who've been married a long time wouldn't necessarily describe our spouses as agreeable. That's just David might, but I would. But agreeableness. So women tend to be much more agreeable than guys do. And the reason they think behind this is because oftentimes women have child care responsibilities. And so if it was a guy looking after a baby, good luck baby, you know. It's like you put him down and forget where you put him. Do we have a kid somewhere on it? So women have this tendency, let's put it that way, to be much more attentive to the needs of others. Let's leave it at that, which is a good thing, a very good thing. There's a really interesting study that was done, and it was one of the most thorough studies psychology's ever done. It was over a period of like a decade that they studied, interviewed thousands and thousands of people. And what they found was that basically the difference between men and women in this area of agreeableness, because what they did is they studied the Scandinavian countries, right? Because Scandinavia has probably gone the furthest in terms of taking away the social impact and, how can I say, the social differences between men and women in terms of social construct, in terms of social expectations. And so they have got the most rules and regulations about equality between men and women. They've got all these things, taken away almost all the social barriers that would influence the difference between men and women. They would want equality across the board, right? Well, the results showed that the greatest difference between men and women in terms of their, the right term, in terms of their sort of occupations and where they decided to work and that kind, were in Scandinavia. It was the biggest diversion there was. And the reason apparently was because when you take away the social influences and you let pure biology, genetics, be more free, then the women almost, it was a huge percentage. They automatically went into areas of like nursing and childcare and teaching and all these kind of things. The men went over into what we call the STEM, the science areas. And the takeaway on that was, primarily, women are interested in people, men are interested in things, mostly. Okay? And so what happens was you get this natural diversion. All that to say that the better we understand not only ourselves, but the better we understand other people, it's going to help us in terms of relationships, it's going to help us in terms of understanding where people are coming from. And so it just gives us a really good grounding for not only ourselves, but for others. Astrid.
Is it more mixed in other countries?
Is it what?
More mixed in other countries? Like, is it more guys being a nurse in other countries?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's still social, there's still social pressure.
Okay.
But the thing that why they studied the Scandinavian countries, because you guys have done probably the most remarkable job of trying to make everything equal, by taking all the social pressure off. And so when you do that, then you're left with pure biology, and it's the natural, instinctive temperament then that has caused this division. And by the way, nobody wanted to have that as the result. Nobody did.
Yeah.
The whole psychological community that was doing the studies, they did it over and over again to make sure they didn't make a mistake, because that is not what they expected. They expected, more equality right across the board. And in fact, they got just the opposite. So, anyway, hopefully, this is one of those things, you just put it in the back of your head, think about it. It's not something that's going to be the absolute determining factor about everything, but it should help you, give you an idea of what you're good at, what you enjoy, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses. Strengths, mature them, weaknesses, try to mitigate them, work on them, and I just found this very helpful in terms of being able to have a pretty good idea of who I was as an individual. And the other thing is that it helps you not try to be something you're not. Let's put it that way. Because whenever you try to be something or somebody that's not you, you're going to be pretty miserable. Being yourself, who you are, embracing it, accepting it, and doing the best with it is the best pathway forward. And we just saw Nick, the guy with no arms and no legs, and you think, oh my gosh. And Linda reported that he was it Chile or whatever it was, and thousands came to know the Lord because of Nick. Well, if you look at him, you think, wow, he is so disadvantaged, he could never do anything, right? I mean, that'd be a pretty good conclusion. But with God and willpower and discipline and right attitude and everything, the guy was amazing. I mean, you can't watch that video and go, not be impressed by it, because that's somebody who had virtually everything against him, and yet has made a remarkable life for himself. And so, now we're not all Nicks, but that's the potential, and all the way. But Nick, he's on his way to being perfect, right? Given what he was given, he has now transformed that potential, whatever we'd say, very limited potential. But he's transformed the potential into something that is real and true and impactful. And that's our challenge as well. You've got the potential. That's not the question. You've got it. The question is, what are you going to do with it? And that is the big, that's the ultimate question. So anyway, we'll move on. Oh, this is way. Oh, yeah. Just a reminder, guys, your brain, woman's brain. So, there.
Can I just jump in with something? Like, yeah, just to defend the guys a little bit, like, because it can be like a good thing. I thought them. Yeah, advantage with both. Like, for example, in a stressful situation, most women will go like, where's my kid? Like, and the guy will be more like relaxed and yeah, calm and stuff. So it can be very good to be on that brain. I just wanted to say that they have very many good qualities.
Yes, that's true.
With the simple things.
Thank you for that affirmation.
Thank you.
No, it is not, one isn't better than the other, it's just like, one is maybe a little more complex than the other. So, so if you did this, you listed the 5 things you really enjoy doing, the things you're good at, and that gives you some of the indication of where you might be heading down the road. And now we're talking about goal setting. Now, the reason this is important, and I understand there is a sensitivity among the Z generation that you feel like your parents and society are kind of on your back, as it were. They're pressuring you and they're saying, you know, don't be so lazy. You know, you got to get some goals. You got to have some energy. You got to get, you got to get moving. You got to do something with your life. Come on, get done. Now that can get old really quick, and it's not fair to you guys, and it's not helpful. Let's put it that way, because you've got the potential. You're just in a situation, as we talked about postmodernism, where all of the markers, all of the reference points have been torn away. There are none, and so you're swimming in this soup where there's really no right and wrong. There's no good and bad. There's no binaries at all. Anything that's this or the opposite. There's none of those. So that's one of the things that postmodernism states very, very, very clearly, that all binaries have to be destroyed. So there's no such thing as male or female. So all these things are gone. And you're kind of then, as we talked about lostness, where you don't have a reference point, you're kind of floating around. So it's understandable, let's put it that way. From my opinion, it's totally understandable that it's taking you a little bit of a while, because we say getting your feet on the ground, well, there's no ground. Getting your orientation, there's nothing to orient yourself to. It's all relative. So how do we do it? Well, that's hopefully what I'm going to help you with today. But the reason that goals and objectives are important. So I'll just lay this out here, and then you guys decide, how you want to respond to it. That's the right side. So the reason that goals and objectives are important is it gives you something that you're going to be aiming at, shooting for. Nothing in it's not magic or anything, but you're just saying, hey, that's a goal. That's something I want to do. Now, once you have a goal, then you step back and you're committed to that goal. It's meaningful to you. Then you step back and you start making a plan, a strategy. How am I going to get to that goal? And then you put together step by step how you're going to get there. Now, what that does, it sets you up for positive emotion, okay? Positive feelings about yourself. Because a lot of people say, well, you just need to love yourself for who you are. You're such a great kid. No. Maybe, yeah, but no. The way that you create value and meaning in your life is by taking on voluntarily, okay? Voluntarily taking on goals and objectives that you agree to, that you personally are going to follow. So, as I talked about yesterday, when there's no goals, there's no positive emotion much, because that's where positive emotion comes from moving towards a goal. We talked about, remember, serotonin and dopamine?
Mhm.
So whenever you move towards the goal, your brain kicks in the serotonin and you feel good. You feel good. I've done something. I've accomplished something. And then, after that, the dopamine kicks in, and that's the motivating that's not a it's not even a hormone. Anyway, trying to think of the right term.
It's a
Kind of a
neurotransmitter.
neurotransmitter that motivates you. You want to do it. You want to do it. So that you do it, you feel good, dopamine kicks in, you want to do it again, the next day you do it better, you feel better about yourself, and you just keep moving forward. That's where positive emotion comes from. So if you don't have goals, the only way you can try to get positive emotion is you kind of make it up, or drugs, or whatever, but it doesn't work. That's not the way God created us. He created us to have goals and objectives. He's created the brain to reinforce those so that we will then grow, okay? Get mature, use our potential, expand our potential. Yes?
But
Jeff,
I have some difficulties with this because it really feels like chasing after dopamine, chasing after making yourself feeling good instead of finding your joy in God. He asks.
The consequence of this is growth. We grow.
Yeah.
So it's not so much we're doing it for our own, it's not even like it's a self-fulfilling thing, but the goal is to grow into our maturity.
Yeah.
This is the way you do it. If you have no goals, then you're not gonna get any dopamine. It's like, I guess it's like the rat and cocaine, you kind of, sort of like that. But in a good sense, because growing is the way you release your potential, right? You've got the potential to stuff, you do it, you feel good about it, you're motivated to do it, you go more, and now you're releasing this potential that's in you, you're releasing it into becoming mature and growing towards what God's called us to do, which is perfection, which is absolute maturity.